Howdy, Landon. Hear me okay? Let's see here. Sweet. Going live now. Ish. All right. What's up, Chris? Chris, how's the music this time compared to my voice level? It's always hard to nail that one. Sweet. All right. It was really complicated to set this up as far as getting the mic to go into the stream, which then forwards the mic signal into my Mac, so then ScreenFlow can pick it up and then record, and then I can edit the audio from ScreenFlow while listening to it and streaming it. Yeah, so it's all good. We'll figure it out. Not without its pain points, though. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and get started here with my plan is to create a lesson from scratch. The only real idea I have right now is I'm going to create a lesson about using promises in RxJS. I don't have a fully fleshed demo in my head. I haven't pre-recorded anything, so I want everyone to see all the hiccups and bad stuff as well as the good stuff. So first, anytime I'm going to create a demo, I have a little script which I call plus vanilla. And sometimes my L key gets stuck, so it types too many L's. And I can type the name of the project. I'll say like promises in RxJS. So this vanilla script, if you want to look at it, launches a whole bunch of stuff. So it goes into my project directory. It clones my vanilla template using a tool called dgit. So it removes all the git info from it. So it's not a fork of it. It's just a clean project after that. Navigates into that directory. So $1 is the name of that project I just used. And initializes a Git project, adds all the files, commits it. Git create is from GitHub. So if you're to check out right now, github.com/John Lindquist, go into my repos, you can see that I have promises in RxJS up there and running. And it has all the files that were created because it pushed everything up there. And then I use pnpm, which is like npm, but it has like a local cache, so installs are lightning fast instead of pulling everything down new. That works for my purposes. It doesn't work for every project out there, but definitely worth looking into if you're doing a ton of small demos and stuff. And then I can also fire up code in the current directory and even open up a specific file. So you'll see when I launched the other instance of code, this one, that launched automatically and even opened up my index.js file, so that when I just type console log hello, hit save, I already have my project up and running. Make that bigger, because again, in that script, it invokes start after opening code. So it sets up a ton of stuff for me, and like a lot of these demo things that I don't want to spend all that time opening and moving files around are taken care of for me. So the next thing I want to show, that like thinking ahead, is I'm going to share this demo with somebody. So I have a little thing I can fire up. I'll open it in my that new project. I call it like promises something. Promise it. It's in projects, promises, promises in RxJS. And I have a little command I can run called embed, and that'll open up my current directory based on the current branch. So and that'll open that from GitHub, so I can check on what my project is. So for example, if I commit this file, and I even have a shortcut, just like commit and push. So I'm going to fire that up. So it's a keyboard shortcut that runs this, which I'll show you in a second. So that's going to commit everything, and you'll see that this file has changed to match what I had locally over yonder. See if I can resize things properly here. So yeah, that's already pushed up just by one command, and there's an extension I use for that. It's called run in terminal. So if I look at my keyboard shortcuts in the JSON file, you'll see I have, it's Command Shift this one. So that one invokes the run in terminal command, and the command is just this whole thing, and it just commits the date as the default message, and then pushes everything up. You can also, like that tool allows you to do other things, like I think pull in certain things from your current project and things that are set up in there. I don't think I have any commands that use any of those features, but yeah, for example, here's like another one I use. This one's opens up my status of my Netlify build. So if I just, because I often, when I'm pushing my blog up, like I'll do an update to my blog, I'll hit Command Shift P, and then if I just do Command Alt Shift P, that'll fire up Netlify to check on how the build is going for that. So if you have projects that you work on all the time, and commands you run all the time, or even like websites you open all the time while programming, you can just bind this stuff to keyboard shortcuts and fire them open for a good time. And then, so with that all set up, I always make sure to I usually maximize this window, and then come over here. I'm going to grab this one and then drag it right there. So when I'm setting this up, if I'm in 1280 by 720, I can scooch that all the way over and it fits about right. Right now I'm in 1920 by 1080. So I'm going to just make it somewhere around 2/3. One of the reasons I liked it with a smaller resolution is I could always rely on that being the same size if I had to go back and re-record something, but I should find a window manager. I'm going to start recording in 1080p for this stuff, especially since it's on stream now. And once that's set up, right around there, we have a sandbox up and running. I make sure I close all of the, so if you look in your view, like the status bar visibility, so a lot of people leave this one open, which is a bunch of information no one needs to see. I like to try and remove as much information as possible. Sometimes I forget, it's not a huge deal. But then if I remove that and can collapse that as well, just Command B, toggle that open and closed. So now we have a nice clean setup where we just have code and we just have the results of the code. Because you would just want to keep people focused on here's code, here's what it does. Here's code, here's what it does. Sometimes I joke that we're not necessarily teachers as much as we are demoers. Like we're just doing the thing and showing and letting people watch us do the thing. It's almost like live streaming, where you just kind of do it and people watch. But the key difference is that I'm calling out the changes. Like this did that, this did that. That's like the majority of the videos. Once you get into kind of the why of things and you're explaining whys, it's always best to, we're layers of knowledge, sure. The whys of videos, it's still good to find those visual causes, like X causes Y, Y causes Z, and point those out, rather than spending so much time on a lecture. Any sort of demo you can come up with to promote the cause and effect will definitely help out. So I'm going to just kind of play around with this demo, like the things I know, like I know if I import from RxJS that I can wrap a promise, a promc, and then subscribe to it. So that's one of the things I want to cover. So I imagine a lot of people would create like mental checklists of things they want to make in a video. I honestly focus so much on the demo that I end up winging a lot of the stuff on the video creation process and then going back and naming it later. Like I start with an idea, I go in and I play with the demo for long enough that I find all the things that I can throw away, and I leave with just that kind of one isolated idea of the thing I wanted to teach. So like I definitely want to teach that from a promise, I can just create or convert a promise to an observable by passing a promise into from. So the most common thing I could think of for a promise would be to use fetch. And if I'm going to use fetch, I'm going to need an API. So in API, I'm going to, let's see, open a new browser here. New window. If you set up some like APIs in GitHub, or you're working with APIs in your demos, like you don't necessarily want people to rely on things that are going to go up and down, or you don't want them to abuse like a public API you make for them. One thing I can recommend there is that you go into, like if you just commit it to GitHub, you can use something like Glitch, and they have these options. I think it's this. They have these options where it can clone from repo and then remix it and give you your own URL as for that service. So I must have typed something wrong. Let's see if I can go back home. So clone from Git repo. it'd be /John Lindquist / I think it's swappy JSON server.git. You can see, if you may have noticed that URL real quick. If you're able to catch on to that, then you can just save that URL. If you look in I search my Twitter history, and I have it somewhere where you can just like click a button and launch this URL, which will launch this server. We'll open this in a new window. Just wait for that to fire up. So now I can go to people one, and I have this API that I can use in my demos, and just drop that URL in there, not worry about people abusing my own personal APIs. This is just something Glitch is hosting for me. Code Sandbox can do a similar thing where it will just fire up a container for your Node APIs or Go APIs or whatever, Django or whatever your service you're using. I have been exploring. I converted this into a GraphQL API, but if you want to check that out, it's like a, where's that swappy GraphQL server. So here's an example of Code Sandbox doing this. So wait for that to fire up. Watch the pretty pink cube as it builds. I did say Go and Django. I mean, what? Ruby on Rails. Name something, and I think. Glitch. I may have just been calling out random words and not thinking whether or not Glitch supported them. Now, yeah, I'm not sure if what its bounds are. I know. I think Code Sandbox can it do Docker now? That's a good question. Code Sandbox Docker. Whoops, no, we don't want to host Code Sandbox. We want Code Sandbox to run a Docker container. Docker containers. No medium. I don't want to do anything. We want to give anyone access to a Docker instance with the click of a button. I don't know if that happened or not. But once Code Sandbox can launch a Docker container, then you have, whatever you want, right? All right, back to something. So yeah, here's the GraphQL version of the server I was using. If you ever want to check this out, I can pop that out, and is it just /GraphQL? Is that where the graphical is? So you can run these things and query some data on there, and have fun with. I think I even put mutation stuff on there, since it's just in-memory. I don't remember if it's based on a JSON file or just an object somewhere. Anywho, so yeah, APIs, anytime you build one of these things, make sure it's something you can fire up off a Glitch or Code Sandbox if you're going to use it for demos, rather than worrying about hosting it on your own. For a long time, I had this URL and I'd use it for everything. StarWars.egghead.training. I loved the URL. It just rang true to me, but that doesn't scale or something. It's just not a great use for live demos that people are going to find. All right, so with this with this URL, can bring that over here. And one thing I wanted to teach for sure, like in the idea that I had, is that really having cross origin. That doesn't seem right. Set the request mode to no proof. I swear I just used this a second ago. I have another project where I played around. New window. Open recent. And check the network request. And yeah, we can see it right there. What did I do differently? Why is that glitch different than this glitch? They're both in glitch.me. Oh, maybe it's, I have to request like one of the actual objects. There we go. Okay, yeah, I had to make a request to the API, not the root of it. So yeah, it definitely works on Chris's glitch. So in my network tab, one of the things I definitely wanted to show in my demo as well, that I think is within scope of the lesson, is that when you invoke or use fetch like this, it automatically makes this network request. And if I were to use from like this, even though it's converting it to an observable, and I could still just subscribe. I've been doing that too often where I hit tab, and console log out the result. So even if I did this, this would still invoke automatically, and observables usually wait for you to push something in before fetching. So I wanted to show defer as well. So where defer can just take a function and return something. Let's see. Let's see, network y is why is that? Oh, because I'm subscribing. Sorry. There we go. So when I use defer with a function in there, I can return a promise, and that won't run until I subscribe. So I want to show that in there, because if I already not subscribe means in ArcGIS land it means go. But if I were to do this one, it would still make that request. So checking the network, there's the request. I wish you could customize this more so I could have my network tab and my console tab open a bit. I mean, I know you can do this, but like, let's see. I guess that's not too bad if our focus is. Let's see, font size looks okay. Yeah, customizing the Chrome panels would be great. Like, I just want to see, like, I want to hide all of this stuff up here. Yeah, the UI headers is a lot. I don't want to see any of this. Like, I just want to see the output of the console and the network request. But it needs like a Chrome console needs like a presentation mode or something. All right, so with that, there's definitely those two things that I want to show, like the interop between promises and observables. And the other one is, if we stick back to the fur, is that when I subscribe here, and I'll just again log out the response, you can see that I get this response type where it's a type of cores, and it's, or the type has cores on it, or the type has a type of cores on it, and the type is a response, and the body's in there because we have to do the response.json on the on that value. So typically you built custom console output so the console displays in the preview pane. Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we have played around with that in the past a bit. I don't reach for that often though. I still should probably check that out or find a better way to do that. I still like being able to like collapse and expand all the properties and navigate into these, and I still use the like this sort of stuff sometimes, so it's an interactive console. Is that 0, the previous one? I guess that's just a DOM element. All right, clear that out, Command K. Yeah, so the other thing I wanted to show is that if I use an observable, or sorry, use a promise inside of an operator, so say for example switch map, take the response and say response.json. I'd want to show that I don't need to do anything like other than import switch map from RxJS operators. Like I don't need to do any other conversion. So anytime a promise is used inside of RxJS, it automatically wraps it for you. You're never like writing code to wrap these. This is the exact same operator you'd use if this wasn't a promise. So you're probably, if you're familiar with promises, you're probably familiar with the fetch and then response.json, and then the console log, or async await, and awaiting this, then awaiting that. But you can just use that same logic inside of RxJS, and it just handles that for you. There's like that automatic conversions happening. So finally, what I wanted to show is that you can take these, like this switch map and this fetch. Say, for example, I didn't want to fetch until I clicked on the document. So if I bring in from event and do document click, if I learn how to type, and then I want to think, well, how am I going to switch over to an observable or switch over to a promise from here? Why do I keep hitting tab? Subscribe. Like I want to show people what they do in here. So we start with an observable. How do you use a promise in between? And we can just grab this fetch. We can toss in a switch map here, and this would be the event, which is switching over to the fetch. Actually, let's pull this out. I think in my demo, because that's long enough, just want that to be a URL. Yeah, usually if something starts going beyond where people can see on the screen, I'll try and make it so that's like a single line where they can kind of keep the context of that even if they can't see what's at the edge of the screen, rather than have it nested inside of something. And so yeah, it'll switch map over to this, and then switch map, we can just bring up that same line from below here. And then we have a system where we're clicking on the document, one click, and you can see we get the console log out of that network request to our API. So probably the final thing I'd want to do here is say that we can also just create our own like operator for this, and I'm going to call this get Luke, and use pipe and say get Luke. So for example, if you're going to start with promises and then refactor to observables later, like if you want to wrap them in like switch maps or merge maps and pipes and whatnot, you can isolate them into their own pieces. You don't have to leave them nested inside of here. Essentially anything you find inside of a dot pipe, you can copy and paste into the pipe helper, the pipe utility, and then just use those as reusable operators. Yeah, Ben, I think I remember you writing that console preview code. It was a while back though. It was a couple of years ago, if I remember correctly. All right, so those are the pieces. You can chain pipe off of from event, but you have to import it to create a pipe utility. Yeah. But here you go, Ian. Here's your trick of the day. Watch this. Get Luke and wrap that around from event. And it still works the same. Mind blown. All right. Functional programming for the win. Yeah, I guess I need to start adding like mind blown reaction GIFs and whatnot. So GIFs, GIFs, so people can do as they please. Yeah, Ian, that's because all operators accept a source as their first argument. Pipe just kind of flips that on its head so that this operator is accepting the source. And I think like the more people understand that, it's like this is the thing being passed down through the pipe, and this operator is accepting this, then you can understand why you can just do one of those. But that's not how anybody writes RxJS. It's just, but it makes a lot of sense to people who are familiar with functional programming. Like the data goes in last, and then it goes through all the functions. It just so happens that the data this time is a function called from event. And the function, it just happens to be an observable, and then all the patterns get involved. So, alrighty, so I think I have my idea in mind. And I think I'll go ahead and try and record something. This will be like the awkward part for me because I'm going to like switch into recording voice mode where I'm like, hey, yeah, I don't say hey everybody, but start by clicking on this, then do that, then do that. Like that's my recording voice. I don't know how to explain the tone of that, or yeah. Hey, what's up, YouTube? Back with my homies today. I do incredible impersonations. Just ask Taylor. So I don't know. Yeah, hey, it would be so terrible. Please, never. I had no. Yeah, don't like. Yes, all those things. I would never say smash the like button, or any of the subscribe or anything. All right. So, but there is like a tone or a voice where you kind of go into a acting mode. You know, you put on a happy face, or a happy voice per se, and Just kind of go for it so that your voice is interesting. Like right now, I think I'm talking and I'm pretty boring and monotonous. But if you try and make it more sing-song or engaging, then I think that's appreciated by the people watching the video, so that they're and I've reviewed some like really dull voices before, and I've, like when Egghead first started, I used to try and ask people to be more excited about what they were teaching. It never went over well. Someone watched an Egghead video the other day for the first time. It's weird hearing your instructor voice. Yeah, an instructor voice is a thing. But yeah, it's just that thing you try and put on, and it's a difficult thing to ask people to do. I think smiling helps as like a trick. I would almost say that projecting helps, but you are talking like into a microphone that's 2 inches away. It's not like you're talking to someone that, like in musicals, or like talk to the person in the back of the room. Like that's the voice you're using, as if you're trying to get the attention of the person in the back of the room. Like you don't have to go that far, because then you're blowing out your mic, but definitely put on some sort of engaging voice that people will be interested in. And like the other thing I've noticed for a lot of people is that they'll record super late at night, and it comes across like if you're recording at 3 a.m. that you've been working all day on that demo, and you finally found some time at 3 a.m. to knock the video out. Like I would say just sleep on it and do it the next day. I know like there's that desire to get that thing done that day, but because like we don't have the deadlines or pressure or anything, just take a nap before you try and knock out some of those lessons. Like fatigue in a voice, I think is one of the first places you notice it, especially if you can't see their face. So yeah, just this is the advice Ian came for. You can go now. Take a nap, yes. Yeah, I don't know some of the times that people record at. It's a thing. And it'll be different for everyone. I know that some people are wide awake at those times. But if you have any energy left, just save it up for that time when you have that energy. All right. I think I'll go ahead and try and record this. Yeah, sleep, and naps. I'm going to hide this. I just noticed that that's still there. If you work in incognito mode, then those things are all hidden, so it's not a big deal. And I'm checking my, like, one way to, we've never like given a strict font size of what people should shoot for. Usually if you like take a step back from your screen, and you think, what would this look like if it were in a smaller window, or if you even like open up Egghead itself and look at one of the sizes of the windows. So if you like look at the size of this window, I'm like, well, could I see it if it was that big? Because right now it's this large, and usually you just want to make it too big and then back off. Like that's not quite enough room. So I'm just hitting Command plus and Command minus. How do I not hide the browser title bar? How do I not hide this? Oh, I think that's like Command Shift F. Is that what you're talking about? Command Shift F. Boom, boom, boom. Do you not hide it? I do not hide it. I think most of the time I leave it open just so people have that information that this is a local host, and it is a local dev server. So that I think that is valuable information to them, and that it's not some other page I'm working on. I mean, I'm totally willing to debate that point, but I think it's worth keeping there. All right, so I think I have everything ready. Trying to remember the points I wanted to cover. A promise inside of a from. I want to keep this URL handy. So we'll just move this over to here. That'll be fine. I don't need to translate that to Norwegian. And I can delete all of this. So now I have my clean slate. And I always just leave it on the master branch for the main demo. Not too worried about the branches and the project structure for this project. But what I do need to do now is open ScreenFlow. So do I already have that up and running? So ScreenFlow is running. Configure recording. Looks like, okay, my mic is coming through. This is the magic of modern technology, is that I'm streaming my audio and ScreenFlow on my other machine. It's picking up the same microphone. So let's see. Wonder if I'll have to, I might just have to switch over between screens after I hit record. I don't know why that's not opening. I guess it doesn't open on a full screen monitor. Like I usually work with a second monitor where I can have things open. Right now I'm just running on this one, so I don't have stray things that I can't find. So things look good. Oh, that went red. That was surprising. Usually, like volume-wise, what I want to see here is that if I talk really loud, it should on my preamp or in some other settings, it should go yellow, like you're about to get too hot. It looks like in ScreenFlow, if you do that, it turns red. There's no yellow in ScreenFlow. But you're safe if you're like screaming and it's yellow, like it's warning you that you're almost too hot. But I thought that ScreenFlow showed that, but I guess it's like there's a light on my preamp that's showing me going yellow when I scream. And that's just about where I like it, as picking up enough. Like fidgeting with gain dials all day is my least, like, that's my personal hell. Least favorite thing to do. So once you get it set up, you just don't touch it, and you leave it at that setting. But you do want to see a significant amount of volume coming in here, above half at least. And I believe the kits we send out can get that much gain on there, but still have good noise. I'm not running that kit right now. Right now I have a Frankenstein set up with enough chords showing that Joel would probably strangle me. Anywho. So I'm going to go ahead and hit record. And it should be recording my screen here. I'll go back over. And like one thing I want people to like get comfortable with is like my screen is recording right now and I'm speaking nonsense, and that's totally fine because I can edit this out later. Like I can just sit here and do nothing and think or ponder, and that'll be part of my recording, and that's fine. Like the number one thing to creating a video is hitting record. You just got to hit that button. Like the more you hesitate on hitting a button, like it's kind of like the first step to going for a run is putting your shoes on and tying them, because then you feel like, oh, my shoes are on, I got to go run. as soon as you hit that record button, you're like, well, I better record something. So now I'm in that like anxious state of my screen is recording something. That little icon up here for ScreenFlow has that little circle in it, and it's telling me, John, like, start recording something. You're just wasting time now. You're gonna have to edit out. So yeah, definitely, like, step one, once you got your demo done, like, hit that record button and just make a bunch of mistakes. Like I'll make a bunch of typos here, and I'll flub around all the time, and it's totally fine because we have the power of ripple delete at our side. All right, now if I can remember what demo I was going to make. I'm thinking like the title is going to be using promises in RxJS, something like that. So let's go ahead and put on recording voice and start typing stuff. So import from RxJS. See, there's my recording voice. And then we can use from, whoops, see, I already made a typo, backing out. Then we can use from with any promise that we pass in, and it will automatically convert it into an observable. And so did I like the way I sounded there? Did I say too many words without showing something? Like I stop and think about that all the time. Like I'll just say stuff, like I'm throwing stuff against the wall, and then I sit and think about it. Like, was that good? Was that a good take? If not, all I have to do is delete, and then I can go back and edit that stuff out. Like I don't know. I know, like, juggling all those thoughts can be challenging. Like with experience and time, it gets easier to juggle. Like, was that a good take? There's always something you're thinking about. At least in my mind when I'm recording. So I'll just kind of mentally rewind. So I know that I had like a checkpoint of import from RxJS. So now I can start my next, like, that's the end of the sentence, and like I can take a break after that. So the next thing I can do is, like, I have my next thought, and my next thought is, okay, from I can wrap it around a promise. So I'll say use from and wrap it around any promise, and then I can make a mistake in typing there and keep going, and then edit the typing mistake out. Those are easy to edit out. Or I can just say that again, like if that was too much. Yeah, for instance, I talked with some devs about streaming. They think they wouldn't have the mental capacity to do it. Keep things in your head, and it does take some practice. Yeah. Yeah, mental capacity. That's one thing I got loads of. All right. So back to where I was. Use from around any promise. We'll just type a new promise, and then you can subscribe and use the promise inside of any stream. That's probably not what I wanted to do. I wanted to start with what's the shortest resolver I can write? So resolve. So resolve, and then resolve. Oh, I can just do promise resolve. I don't have to do that. Yeah, resolve. I can just do this. This one. This returns a promise, right? Sweet. Yeah. I'm gonna do that one and promise resolve instead. And yeah, this actually happens all the time for me. I'll be typing out my demo, and I'm like, that doesn't seem right, and then I'll just modify what I was doing on the fly. So that's I always struggle to relate to the people who like write out scripts ahead of time, because I feel like the recording process is part of the tossing out the stuff that doesn't work. So that's the way I just treat it. I treat recording as a scratch pad more than a chisel and stone. Like this is my time to just play with the demo and see what sticks. Like before, when I was coming up with an idea for a demo, like I saw what worked, and now like it's time to see what sticks. So I think at this point I'm going to go ahead and stop my recording and discard it. Like I just have so much junk talking in there. I just want to start over. There's no reason to keep that running when I was talking for 10 minutes. We'll go ahead and start over though. All right. Import from RxJS, and then we can use from around any. Oops, I keep on saying observable instead of promise. Then we can use from around any promise. So promise.resolve. Let's pass in hi, and then we can subscribe. Why do I keep on, like my finger slips on this tab key? I'm going to start over from there. I didn't like that at all. Put on my happy voice again. Import from RxJS. Then we can use from around any promise. So we'll say promise resolve and just pass in hi. And then we can subscribe. Then we can subscribe. What the heck? Why does that keep hitting tab? Then we can subscribe. Does that think it's Emmet? Sub. That's what's going on. SU is an Emmet abbreviation. Weird. I'll have to type around that. Don't want to type around that. Settings. Whoops. Emmet. Can I remove Emmet? Yeah, I want to remove Emmet from the completion. Show suggestions, snippets. All right. I'll just be more aware of that and type around it. Thanks, Blase. All right, I'm just going to start over. Import from RxJS. Then we can use from around any promise. So promise resolve hi, and then subscribe, and just console log out the result. And then in our console, we'll see hi. Let me, that's a bit small. I think we'll make it that size. All right. Last try, I promise. This will be the one take wonder. I'm known as the one take wonder on these videos. It's because no one has seen me do this. Whereas, yeah, this is my scratch pad. This is my Bob Ross canvas right here. Let's say import. Whoa. Import from RxJS. Then we can use from around any promise. We'll use promise resolve to create our promise. Just pass in hi, and then we can subscribe and console log out the result. And you can see hi in the console. Happy little promises. I love it. So the hi from our promise is passed down the stream into our subscribe and then logged out. All right. The most common form of promise would be a fetch. So we can fetch from an API, which I've saved here. And I'll copy and paste this into the code. Paste that in there. And then I can bring this fetch and replace this promise we already have. And you'll see once I hit save, the response type with the data and body on it. I swear if you go back and watch my lessons, I probably say the words hit save. It's like my tick when I record like words I say to take up space, and it bothers me. It's like my like when you hit save, when you hit save, when you hit save. And I may have developed that from before editors automatically saved or something, like reminding people to always hit save. I don't know. Anyway, something I think about when I'm recording, and just, yeah. Hit save mixtape, please do. All right. As you can see, yeah, those are interesting. The like, as you can clearly see, which is totally obvious to your sharp and brilliant mind, you know, like you got to kind of be careful with like the way you phrase some of those things. Yeah, because, you know, obvious reasons for those words. Yeah, I just said obvious reasons. For non-obvious reasons. All right. Okay. Rewinding my brain back to what I just said. Hit save, and we'll see the response type. So let's see. So we've converted this promise into an observable using from. But what we're receiving here is the response type, and we still need to read the body from the JSON. Now we can do that by typing pipe and then using a common operator called switch map, which will take our response and then allow us to response.json on the response. And once I hit save, see, I said it again. I didn't import switch map. I knew that was going to happen. See if I can mentally rewind back to here. Let's see. So from has wrapped this promise we created with fetch and gave us a response, but what we want is the body of the response. To do that, we need to use .pipe and then switch map on the response, and then use the response.json. Now to use the switch map operator, we do need to import that from our xjs/operators. So I'll hit save here, and you'll see now we have the body of the response. And in the network tab, you can see we've made that request to the /1 on our API. I think I want to show the promise equivalent, help people understand that. The promise equivalent of this would be just fetching. Oops. The promise equivalent of this would be fetch and then .then response.json, and then a then and a console log. So fetch returns a promise, and then this returns a promise, and then we can log it out. What you'll notice here is that inside of our switch map, it automatically converted this promise back into an observable that we can use when we subscribe. So whether you use the promise inside of from when you start your stream or use it inside of an operator, those promises will automatically be converted for you. So let's bring this fetch back down into our from. Delete this. And we have the body of our response back. With promises, though, if we don't subscribe, you wouldn't expect to make a network request. But you'll see when we invoke fetch this way, you'll see this request is being made. So when I refresh, you'll see that request is going through. So what I can do here is, instead of using from, which synchronously converts that promise into an observable, we can use what's called defer, and then defer can just take a function which returns a promise or an observable to be used later when you subscribe. So now you won't see that network request, so there's no request in there until we subscribe again, and you can see the network request being made and the value being logged out. All right, I think I'm almost done. There's that last part I wanted to do. Yeah. Yeah, tune in for egghead right now. No problem. All right. If you'd like to isolate your promises, let's see, how would I say that? I think that works. If you'd like to isolate your promises, you can take these operators. I'll cut that out, and I'll bring in pipe off of RxJS, and then wrap this in pipe. I'm going to call this just parse, and wrap pipe around that. Then I can just toss in parse right here, and we still have the same result. It's a clean refactor. Let's see, I want to do the document click thing, but did I want to do that? I guess I can save that for later. Because if yeah, it doesn't make too much sense to do that right here. Right, you're right there. Might be a little off topic, but how is the pipe that is chained off or differ from the one you just imported? I believe they're the same utility. How's the pipe? Off of different. Oh, sorry. Defer is just creates an observable for later. So pipe is the exact same. Any of these creation operators, this is considered a creation operator. Anything you import off of RxJS is a creation operator. So that should be the same. You ever get multiple lessons out of one take, or do you do a lesson per take? Often, yeah, I don't think I've ever recorded an entire idea and then gone back and cropped out 2 lessons out of one idea. What I do is I think of an end goal for the demo, and then I record up to that end goal and I stop. So before I start recording, I constrain myself to the end demo, which we often call that like the single idea or the focus topic, or there's words in the guide around that. My mind is very demo centric, so I always each lesson to me is a demo with someone walking you through a demo. Now, that's not always the case. That's just how my brain works. But I think if you frame your lesson as the demo is the end goal, then you can be happy with where you stop. Like I know I'm done now because I reached the demo. I don't need to say any more. If I want to add more to my demo, then I create another lesson. So good. Thanks for sharing. I'd love someday to record this kind of videos very good. Awesome. I'd hope to see you on there. Keep creating content and keep reaching out to us. All right, so rewinding brain back to where I was. I think I stopped in a fairly generic spot. So I think I can do this. All right. Let's see. Now with our promise inside of defer and our body parsing inside of the switch map, we can easily switch this over to clicking a button and then loading the data. We'll just do that by importing from event and using from event. And sometimes my lips don't work. I don't know if anyone else has that issue. I didn't bring my water bottle in here, and I'll get that later. So we'll use from event on the document and to say, whoops, I hit something. Oh yeah, my keyboard shortcut for find. Go away. Yeah, vocal warm-ups. La 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 la. No, it's Bumblebee. That's the one. Bumblebee, Bumblebee, Bumblebee. Yeah, Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. What's the red leather, yellow leather one always gets me. Red leather, yellow leather. Red leather, yellow leather. So we'll use from event, pass in the document and the event type, and then we can just pipe on there the switched map promise and the body parsing. So we'll grab out fetch, cut that out. We can delete the for now. So we can switch map over to our promise. So an event comes in and a promise comes out. Then we'll bring this switch map up as well and parse that body out. We can delete that pipe because nothing's in there. And now when we click on the document, so click, you'll see that we make the network request. Here we go. You'll see that we make the network request and have the result in our console. And the really cool thing here is that anything inside of a pipe, whether it's a promise you want to isolate or anything else, can be refactored out into its own operator. And we'll just call this operator getLuke. That's not how you spell Luke. And we'll call this operator getLuke. Use the pipe utility off of RxJS. And then paste in the code we and then paste in the code we cut, and then pass in getLuke into our pipe. Now when we hit save, we can click on the document, see the network request, and the body in the console. All right, I think I'm done with the lesson. I think that's a good recording. We'll see how it turned out. So stop record. Create a new document. All right. All right, that looks good. see, that was about 19 minutes. There were some interruptions. I imagine I do like 7 or 8 minutes for like a 2 or 3 minute lesson. But yeah, this one was definitely longer with all the talking. Thank you, Kriyan. Bow. Yeah, so here, now we're in our nice little editing comfort space. You probably want to save this right away. I think I have an RxJS folder. Oh, not save as, entitled to. Save as promises and RxJS. And before I get there, I want to check the... where's my screen switching? Oh, is this on top of the code? There it is. All right, I'm going to delete that. And I'm going to fire off my keyboard shortcut to commit and push that up. Let's bring out our console. Let's see. Looks like everything worked there. Let's see if the embed is working. Side by side. So when I click, the console should show. Yep. So yeah, our local is in sync and it's on GitHub and the embed is ready to share and everything. I do need to add like the parameters for which file to show and all that, but we can do that later. All right, I'm going to stop the music. Not sure how loud the music is for everyone listening, but I'm just going to let the sound play over the speakers of my Mac, so you can hear this voice. So it's not like my normal talking voice and that voice at the same time, which I thought would sound weird because it'd be hard to differentiate when I'm talking and when it's this video. I wonder if my shortcuts are in place. Yeah, we look good. Okay, so what I can do first here is scroll until I start finding good stuff. So scroll. All right. So usually here's my clue. Once I like blast through this, my clue is when I get to the next part. So you'll see right there. You'll see this means like I typed something else and that whatever this was before it was good. So anything from here back to like there is good. So here until there. So I think I can do, if my shortcuts are all set up. Is that working? So I've shared this in the Egghead Slack channel before. I have my mouse configured so that in ScreenFlow, and I think a lot of mice, like Razer mice and other mice, have these configuration options. And I imagine there would be ways of doing this outside of mouse software. In ScreenFlow, when I open ScreenFlow, it's going to bind this to Command Delete, like my thumb button, and the middle click to Shift click. So that means in my lesson here, I can click here and then Shift click here and then Command Delete, ripple delete stuff. And that's pretty much like the entirety of me editing is click, Shift click, ripple delete. I would ripple delete those, but I don't know if it's good or not. All right, then once I delete that, I'll like listen to it, make sure that whole thing is good. Import from our XJS. Then we can use from around any promise. We'll use promise resolve to create our promise. Just pass in hi, and then we can subscribe and console log out the result. And you can see hi in the console. All right, so that's probably good. Happy little promises, I love it. Oh yeah, that happy. I do think it's, let's see. This is gonna be really weird hearing myself talk to people who aren't there, but we'll make this work. So the hi from our promise is passed down the stream into our subscribe and then logged out. Delete that. So this looks like it was good, but this is a lot. I imagine I was talking to people in here. Let's see. The most common form of promise would be a fetch. So we can fetch from an API, which I've saved here. And I'll copy and paste this into the code, paste that in there, and then I can bring this fetch and replace this promise we already have. Delete some white space. And you'll see once I hit save, the response type. Just some white space in there. I hit save, the response type with the data and body on it. I swear if you go back and watch my lessons. All right. I swear if you go. Man, I say dumb stuff all the time. This will be fun to find. If something gets long like this, I just start chopping out chunks until I find. Because obvious reasons, for non-obvious. So like at least this. So we've converted this promise into an observable using from. But what we're receiving here is the response type, and we still need to read the body from the JSON. Does anyone else do that? Like this is one of the keys to the way I work is I'll start a phrase, and instead of I know there's like that Michael Scott quote of sometimes I'll start a sentence and not know where it's going. Like I'll do that all the time when I'm recording. Like this sentence. And we still need to. Like I just said, we still need to, and then I just stopped. Like I kind of took my hands off the keyboard and mouse, and I thought about we still need to what, and then I can just toss some ideas at it, like we still need to this, we still need to that. Yeah. It's like, yeah, the more pauses and breaks you can take in there, you still need to do the thing, the stuff and things that people do. That's what you need to do. The more relaxed you can be and just kind of like, I think sometimes like the tension or stress of making the lesson can really take you out of your own head. And you stop kind of thinking clearly because you're so focused on what are people going to think, or am I even doing this right? But I don't know. My mind is, spaces are easier to edit out than bad continuation for sure. Like I try and just record with an empty mind. Like an empty mind for me is a pretty easy thing. There's not much in there, so I just sit there and stare at the wall. But yeah, just like be in the moment when you're recording, and like be deliberate about what you're saying, and just keep that lesson kind of moving forward, and don't worry about things that don't matter. Hashtag life pro tips. You'll need to read the body from the JSON. Now we can do that by typing pipe. Now we can do that by typing pipe and then using a common operator called switch map. Delete that. Operator called switch map. Yeah, this is where I don't know. Which will take our response. This is just going to be me clicking buttons for the next couple minutes. So if you want to check your Twitter, and then allow us to now's the time to do it. .json on the response, and once I hit save, see, I said it again. I didn't import switch map. I knew that was going to happen. Oh yeah, dang it, that was a bad take. I hate it when I edit a bad take. Grinds my gears. Don't you dare tweet at me. Which will take our dang it, I edited bad stuff. Someone distracted me. I blame Chris. So it's here. So we've converted this prompt. It's probably that one. Let's go ahead and guess. So from has wrapped this promise we created with fetch. Does that flow? I hope that flows. With the data and body on it. So from has wrapped. Sweet, it totally flows. Yeah, sometimes I'll, if I'm like deep into the lesson and I'm worried about if something flows from, like if I took a very long pause, rather than going back, like rather than stopping the recording and checking to see what I said last, I'll just kind of guesstimate at what I said and continue on with that. And like in post, you could go in and change what you said. Like I didn't know the exact words I used when I was continuing from here. The data and body on it. So from has wrapped this promise we created with fetch. So like that was a fine transition. Like there's times when it's not. And you can just go back in and say something like record audio over it and you're fine. I just keep the recording going until I'm done. Like I don't stop recordings to check on them or to think back or to look back at what I said. I'll just guess and say the next thing and fix it later. So worst case scenario is you record little bits in between or do some editing. And gave us a response, but what we want is the body of the response. Oops. And gave us a response, but what we want is the body of the response. To do that, we need to use .pipe and then switch map on the response. That was a lot of typing without talking. I snipped those out a little bit. Maybe even just a second there, save someone some time. Pipe and then switch map on. I used to edit way more aggressively. Joel has kind of tempered my hardcore editing nature over the years. Because I used to not leave it. Like I used to delete that for sure. So a switch map would just appear. I'm beginning to realize that people don't think the same way I do. So I don't know if anyone else has noticed that. But. On the response, and then use the response.json. Now to use the switch map operator, we do need to import that. One thing I will point out here is when you're naming things, and I know naming things can be really difficult in programming, I would just use the word response. Like I'm not going to name this anything else. Like if its type is response, type out the entire word response, or maybe res if you're like deep into the lessons. But you never know who's watching. Like you don't know if it's someone new to that or not. Anyway, so I started out that way too, been adding in more typing and such. with a little more white space. Yep, got some feedback that transitions are too fast. I used to say, if it's too fast, just pause the video. Like, you have a pause button. But I guess that's me putting the burden on them rather than the other way around. Like, for the few people who think it's too fast, they have the pause button, then everyone else is happy. Anyway, that's gripe over rant/rant. Do you ever increase the video speed instead of cutting out the slow typing bits? No, not really. I see no issue in just text appearing in the editor without typing out the entire word, especially with keywords like a lot of the time I'm silent. It's like on the word import or return or some of the words people have seen all the time. So I don't feel bad about things people would expect to be there. If you're going against expectations, then I'd feel bad about taking space out. Like you do want to give their brain time enough to like recognize the new patterns. But when you're showing what should be established patterns, like the brain should pick up on those before you're even done typing. But I digress. All right, digression over. Report that. Do need to FQL videos I've been doing speeding up a lot, but for other stuff, yeah. And the speeding up can depend on how verbose some of the APIs and stuff are, for sure. And I imagine with queries and all that, where it's like it all needs to be there, but you don't need to see it all typed out. You probably want to speed those up a bit. We need to import that. Yeah, so for example, in this instance, import that. I messed up and then I started deleting. I'm totally comfortable going to the end of the audio where you can see it's IE and then just going here, chopping that out. Need to import that from our like big typing mistake on my part, but I was in the moment or whatever and I just kept going. Is someone going to complain about this? To import that from I don't know, I don't care. Like it's an import statement. Like no big deal. So like they missed me typing import and missed me typing switch map. That's a pattern that's established that I'm not going to use the word should be recognizable, but for the vast majority of people watching this level of lesson, like that's just plain obvious and they just want to move on and see where you're getting. Oh, opinions. I have lots of them. Import that from our XJS/operators. That was a lot of typing too. Bloop. I like to make sound effects when I delete stuff. So I'll hit save here. Did I say plain obvious? Like the double positive? And I mean that in the way of straight up pattern recognition. If I say if they've had years of seeing import statements, seeing another one should be I definitely would never in a million years not say that. We do need to import that from our XJS/operators. So I'll hit save here, and you'll see now. Yeah, I said hit save. And now I use that inflection too here, and I hear myself do it and laugh. Hit save here. I'll hit save here, and you'll see now we have the body of the response. And in the network tab, you can see we've made that request to the /1 on our API. All right, big empty space. We'll go ahead and to show the promise equivalent. Yeah. So delete this for sure, and we'll start checking on. The promise equivalent of this would be just fetching. Let's see. The promise equivalent. Yeah, I thought so. Boop. The promise. Okay, so this is probably good. The promise equivalent of this would be fetch. Boop. Would be fetch, and then dot then. And there's also like this isn't the crux or core of my lesson, but I thought it would be important to show, to relate the two pieces together. So I'd even say like this part is almost like a copy and paste. Like this is what it would look like, but I wanted to type it out so that it didn't look magical. I think copy and paste look magical if you're like copying from another file and pasting it in. And like you can't follow a copy and paste when it's from one file to another. Your brain doesn't know like the context of what it's coming from and what it's going to. If you type it out, you remove some of that magic. So I typed this one out, but this is one of those like I'd go really fast through it, and maybe even if I wasn't talking, I would speed this up probably. API. The promise equivalent of this would be fetch and then dot then response.json. Boop. And then a then in a console log. And boop. So fetch returns a promise, and then this returns a promise. Boop. And then we can log it out. Boop. What you'll notice here is that inside of our switch map, it automatically boop. It automatically converted this promise back into an observable that we can use when we subscribe. Back into an observable that we can use when we subscribe. So whether you use the promise inside of from when you start your stream or use it inside of an operator, those promises will automatically be converted for you. All right. I am going to end the stream now. I got a meeting here in half an hour I got to get to. So I can prepare for that. But just imagine that I kept on clicking and deleting and saying boop over and over again. And then that this whole video is edited. So I got the first like minute and a half of that. Then once I was done, I definitely go back. I watch it once all the way through. And yeah, the one thing I loved about the like this Descript app we're trying out is it has this playback thing right here where you can watch your own lesson at 2x speed without editing the lesson. Oh, new version. Hit it up. Yeah, everyone, you're welcome. Yeah, I don't know if I can watch this at a faster speed, like I can scrub through it. The voiceover beta for Descript. Is there? I don't know what you're referring to. Yeah, I'll definitely do more, for sure. Alrighty, yeah, I wish I could watch these at 2x speed without editing and speeding up the video. So. Can upload a bunch of your voice and it will construct new words for you. Like making your voice like a Google Home or a Siri voice where it could just read stuff for you. Oh, no way. You're joking. That's a thing? Gimme, gimme, gimme. Do I like turn on a beta mode or how do I do that? Check their marketing page. Upgrade to producer. See, I thought we fixed this with them. Those. I'm on the Egghead team plan. Have you tried it, Chris? Ways to use, pricing, resources. There it is. Join the beta. What is my name? My name is John Lindquist. John. I don't want to type my email address on stream. Nobody look. Yes. Egghead.io. You'll have to upload video of yourself at the end. Oh, sweet. I wonder if there's anywhere I can find an hour-and-a-half video of me just talking. How big is your company? 11 to 50 is a big range, but overdub, voice double, what problem does it solve for you? Editing video, screen recordings for educational content. Tell us about the voice you want to synthesize. It is my own voice. I quite like it. How many hours of recorded audio of the voice do you have? That is a lot. Enough? That's a fine question. We'll say 50. I'm sure it's way more than that. Yes. Okay. I'll do that at the end for sure. Okay, thanks everyone for coming. Laters.